What's going on, everybody? I'm going to go over our Azlask commander here. This is what I think is the second best commander for Eldrazi currently. Again, that's just my opinion. I think Zul'Adok is still probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest Eldrazi commander. This was actually the backup commander in Modern Horizons 3 Eldrazi deck, and if you're not familiar with it, it essentially gives you experience counters for every time a colorless creature dies. And for all 5 colors, so Wooburg, you're going to be able to activate it and get a +X where it's the number of experience counters you get. And it'll pump up all your creatures, and then your Scions and Spawns will gain Indestructible and Annihilator 1. So you can either go down the strategy of just creating a ton of Scions and Spawns and trying to annihilate everybody's board. Not going to make you any friends when you're doing this. Or you can go down the route of using those Scions and Spawns to essentially ramp into much larger things. This deck does a little bit of both. You'll be able to get the Titans out by getting those Scions and Spawns to help you ramp. Or if that's not working, you can go down the route of just annihilating your opponents by sacking those Spawns, getting more experience counters, and eventually wiping their boards. That being said, this deck is right around like $4,000 in value. A lot of that value is built into the land base because this is essentially a 6-color deck. I know it's only Wooburg, but the fact that a lot of these Eldrazi actually require the specific colorless mana symbol is going to mean that it's actually a 6-color deck. And because of that, the land base is super critical to making this thing run smoothly. And it took me a while to actually get it to run smoothly. And in its current format, I do feel like it runs pretty smooth. This deck is not meant to just go off for a combo. It's kind of meant to be in that mid-range of like a power level 7 to 8. I know, although that is a subjective thing, I didn't want to tune it to be extremely strong, and I wanted it to kind of be a mid-range deck because I do have decks that are in that higher power range, and sometimes I just want something that's a little bit lower so that I can play with other people. And it doesn't feel super oppressive. It does take some time to get this deck going, probably by like turn 3-4 at the fastest. So I'll go ahead and go over it now. I did upload another version of the deck, by the way, that has a much lower cost land base, lands that come in tapped and things like that. And so it brings down the cost of the deck actually by $3,000 on its own. But like I said in previous videos, I don't think anyone should be deterred from making the proxies to create this deck. Outside of the land base, you should have a lot of the stuff if you're a regular commander player, just sitting in binders or potentially other decks if you do want to use the actual cards. So without any further ado, I'm going to start going over the deck and let me know what you guys think. If you enjoy the deck tech, go ahead and subscribe. If you don't, let me know what I could do to help improve and make better videos in the future. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly. If creatures have common themes, etc., then I'll just skim over them. If not, then I'll go over it in a little bit more detail. I just don't want to make too long of a video by going over every single card in crazy detail, but you'll get the idea of what the theme of the deck is as we go on. So Chittering Dispatcher, this is going to help us create Eldrazi spawns. It's got the Myriad, and it's going to spawn it every time it triggers. Drowner of Hope. This is a Devoid creature, and a Devoid is also going to be a big theme in this deck, and you'll see why. Again, creating us spawns. The Displacer, this is going to help it blink in things that have ETB effects for us. Eldrazi Repurposer. We have Emrakul. This is going to be one of those stompy titans that we get out if we can't get that that tactic of just getting the spawns to annihilate someone. So what we could do instead is we can just go ahead and cast this by sacking all those spawns and getting this out to kind of be a bomb on the board. I will say this deck, like I said, is not going to make you any friends when playing it. Emrakul's Hatcher, again, huge number of spawns being created by that. We have the Messenger, the Glaring Fleshraker. This is also going to help us ping down opponents, and it can become pretty actually can end up being a ton of damage with a lot of the effects like Doubling Season and Parallel Lives that are in this deck. And we also have things like Mondrak. Kozilek, there's another Titan. So there are quite a few Titans. The Titans are interchangeable. I have certain ones in here, but if you feel like you want to put in different ones, you can do that as well. I think I run Emrakul, the World Anew, rather than Emrakul, the Promised End. You can always run Promised End. I'm forgetting exactly the text on Promised End, but I believe that Emrakul, the Promised End, only allows you to take someone else's turn, and then they get another turn after that. So that's one reason I opted out of that Emrakul. We have Kozilek, the Broken Reality. Kozilek's Predator, Mondrak Glory Dominus. So here's a doubling effect for us. Here's actually a tripling effect from Ogre Attack. Ogre Attack is almost always when I play this deck the target of a Path to Exile or something. He is always exiled by someone on the board. Someone always has the answer to just remove him because they know this is just going to cause your strategy to just get completely out of hand. And one tactic in this deck is you're going to want to try to cast Azlask as soon as possible, especially being a 3-drop. Hopefully by turn 1 or 2, you'll be able to get Azlask out. Sorry, by turn 2 or 3. Then we have Propagator drone here. This is going to help us just continually create roaming thrones. So we're going to go ahead and obviously always either choose... we're going to always choose Eldrazi on this, and then it's going to help us get additional triggers. Spawn Gang Commander for more creatures. Spawn Bed Protector. This is going to help us bring things back from the graveyard if we need. Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, so there's another one of our Titans, along with Ulamog the Defiler, and Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. So again, just a ton of Annihilator, a lot of removal here. We have our Titans, our big stompy things, if we need to do that, if for some reason we can't get in. If there's effects they like, I'm forgetting the names of the cards now, but just like pay 1 mana for each creature attacking, then we can go ahead and just get these big Titans out by sacking the spawns and being able to go in. Another reason that you may want these larger creatures in the deck rather than just going for a completely spawn scion tactic is that some people run, stacks effects such as, and this happens to me in the game actually. I'm forgetting the name of the enchantment, but when a creature ETBs it, essentially it takes 2 damage instantaneously. So it's just wiping all your spawns. So you may have to eventually get out a large creature like this to be able to do anything on the board. Then we have Writhing Chrysalis. This card is huge because it can get just completely out of control. And now we're going to go on to our sorceries. Whoops. So here we have All Is Dust. This is going to be a one-sided board wipe for us. So just removing the Eldrazi, or sorry, the opponent's boards rather than ours. And that's why we're going to be running a lot of creatures with Devoid. Then we have Call of the Scions. I always say of the Scions, but it's Call the Scions. This is going to be a sorcery spell. It's going to put 2 on the board for us, and it's Devoid. Demonic Tutor. We do run some tutors here. We're going to only run Demonic and Vampiric. If you want to go for kind of like a much more quicker build, I guess, to reach your goal, I would say run the whole tutor package. You can run, obviously, Worldly, you can run Mystical, etc. if you need to. So we run just Demonic and Vampiric just to get cards to the top of our deck, any card that is. Glimpse the Impossible. This card is also great for creating creatures or just helping us get through the deck. Rise of the Eldrazi. This can really turn the tides if need be. Again, these huge CMCs are really easy to get to in this deck because we're running a Scion Spawn strategy. It is not that hard to get to those huge mana values, and we run a ton of artifacts as well. This deck is running, I think, around 22 artifacts. I currently need to cut 1 card out of this deck as well. As I was listening at it for this video, I realized the deck had 101 cards. So you guys let me know what you think I should cut from the deck. I actually want to cut 2 cards because there's a new card from Foundations. I don't know if you've seen it, but Banner of Kinship. And I think that would be a great addition to this deck. If you don't know what that is, I think it's going to be a really good Kindred artifact coming up here. Check it out, and I think it's going to replace Coat of Arms if anyone runs Coat of Arms in decks currently. We have Skittering Invasion. This is just going to get us a ton of ramp for the following turn that we cast it. Toxic Deluge. That's just a great board wipe in general. We have Eldritch Immunity, so this is going to help save a creature that we want to save, or potentially if we overload it, save our board. Kozilek's Command. That one doesn't, I think, need any introduction there. We have our Mana Drain. So we run a couple counter spells, or I think just one, sorry, and that is Mana Drain. I threw it in here because sometimes it's nice to have that 1 counter in hand, but I think, people are always like, you should run 1 or 2 counter spells. I honestly am a bit hesitant on even running 1 because I feel like once you get down to just a single card that does a single specific thing in Commander, it's like, what are the chances that you're just going to draw into that? And that's kind of where I feel like you either go heavy counters or you just kind of go no counters. That's how I see it. Let me know if you guys think differently. When building decks, I honestly feel that potentially Mana Drain can even be cut from this deck. The reason I do have Mana Drain in here is It can also function as a way to ramp in the following turn if need be. If someone casts something huge and you think you can get that drain off and absorb that mana to cast all these colorless spells, then it can really put you ahead if needed. Otherwise, I don't think this deck really needs counter spells. I think if you are going to go down the counter route, you're going to need to add a lot more than just a single counter spell. We have Vampiric Tutor, as I mentioned, so this is the second tutor and the only other tutor in the deck. And then we have Waterlogged Teachings. And I guess I lied here because Waterlogged is technically a tutor, but it's a modal card. So this is going to act as a land for us as well. So if you're not familiar, this is going to be a Dimir land here, giving us either blue or black if need be. Most of the time, you're going to run this as just putting down the land, but if you need to search, then you can use it for the search later on. Okay, up next, we're going to go over the artifact list here, and this is a pretty large list, like I said. It is 22 artifacts, so we do run Mox Opal just because it's really easy to activate, and these artifacts are going to be really key to flushing out this mana base, and I'll explain why as we start going over them right now. So we have Arcane Signet, we have Ashnod's Altar, it's going to help us ramp. It's going to make our Scions go from giving us 1 mana to 2 mana. And there is an enchantment that makes Scions absolutely busted and the spawns absolutely busted in this deck, and when I hit it, I'll explain it. And I'll go over it. And the crazy part is it's a super, super cheap enchantment to buy. I think it's like 50 cents or $1 at most. Chromatic Lantern. That's going to help us color fix for this deck. Darksteel Monolith. This is going to help us get certain Devoid or certain Titans out for no cost when it comes out. And again, the Scions and Spawns are going to help us get this out quickly. Eldrazi Monument. This is going to give all our spawns flying and indestructible, as well as +1s. Absolutely disgusting. Forsaken Monument. I do not run the Basalt Monolith Forsaken Monument combo in here. Like I said, I didn't want to make this deck like super oppressive or like just try and tutor for a certain combo so that it just absolutely pops off. You're free to do so if you want to, but I wanted to keep it at a certain power level, and that's the reason I did not opt for that. But like I said, completely an option to add into here if you're running Forsaken Monument. We have Idol of the False Gods. So this can get out of control as well. Really easy to activate in this deck. Maskwood Nexus. This is going to help us with card draw as well as other effects in the deck. We have Mox Opal. Like I said, this activates pretty easily as we have 22 artifacts, and actually Roaming Throne also counts as an artifact for us. Skull Clamp. Obviously, since we have those Scions and Spawns, there's 0/1s. This is going to be great card draw for the deck. So I think what makes decks really good, obviously, in Commander is going to be having consistent card draw and having a consistent mana base to just continually refill your hand or make sure that you're able to cast what you need to cast. We have Soul Ring. No need to explain that. And then here we go into our talismans. And the reason we have so many artifacts is because we're actually running quite a few of the talismans, and the talismans really help because not only do they provide 2 separate colors, but they also provide us with that colorless tap that we may need for certain spells that require specifically the colorless mana symbol. Talisman of Creativity, Talisman of Curiosity, Talisman of Dominance, Impulse, and I believe we're running Indulgence, and then that's it. Oh no, and then Resilience. So quite a few of the talismans there. Then we're going to run the One Ring. This deck does lack life gain, so just as a heads up, I wouldn't go absolutely crazy with the One Ring, but there is a card in this deck that will potentially help you get a lot of health back when it does come out, depending on what your board state is. And I'll go over it when we go into that. And that card is in the land base. We have Timeless Lotus. This thing, extremely strong in this deck, but I will say, in a pot of 4, this thing is more often than not, every time I get this thing out, it is just blown up before I even get to use it. So just as a forewarning, extremely strong in this deck, but almost always blown up. There's an Incubator. We're running Eldrazi. This is a Kindred deck. It's tribal at the end of the day. So this is going to allow us to essentially ramp. So really, really good artifact to have in there. And then we have our Vanquisher's Banner. All right. And then Vanquisher's Banner is going to help us with the card draw. So now we're going to go over enchantments and then land base. And like I said, a lot of the value in this this current build that I am showing here is in the land base, but I put up a build, which I'll link down below, which has a much cheaper land base. and you can probably build it with a lot of the enchantments and everything that you have laying around. I think it ends up being around $1,300. Um, if you guys want me to put together a much lower cost version of the deck, I can try and do so and probably replace some of the effects with cards that may have something similar and may bring the cost down to like that $500 to $400 range. But here we go. We will go over the enchantments now. Let's set aside. There's our land base. So here we go. We're going to have a lot of doubling effects in our enchantments here. So we have Anointed Procession. We have Arcane Adaptation. This is going to help us with card draw. We have Awakening Zone. So this is going to help us get that ramp. So as soon as it comes out, this is one of the really strong cards that you, if you see this in your opening hand and you have the mana to cast it, you want to usually keep this hand because it's going to continually ramp you. And then we have Dictate of Erebos. This is a really disgusting card in this deck because the Scions and Spawns have a self-sacrifice text on them. So at your own notice, like whenever you want, you can just sack your Scions or Spawns and just keep wiping people's boards. People will typically try to remove this if possible. Otherwise, you just completely shut the game down once you get the Dictate out. And if you have like, say, Awakening Zone or something like that out. We have Doubling Season. Again, another doubling effect there. We have Echoes of Eternity. This is essentially another doubling effect, but much stronger since it's doubling triggered abilities of our Eldrazi as well. So if a Eldrazi comes in and triggers, it'll create double the number of spawns, etc. We have From Beyond. This is a very good card because it says here, if you read the second part of the card, so this is kind of like Awakening Zone, but better. So it says From Beyond. Pay 1 and a green, sacrifice From Beyond, search your library for an Eldrazi card. So any Eldrazi card, reveal it and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this can end up, if we get the army out that we need and to potentially cast one of those huge titans, then we just go ahead and sack this From Beyond and we grab that, and then we just go ahead and bring out that titan, and it can be quite devastating. We have Kindred Discovery for card draw. This can also get out of hand with the number of spawns that we're creating. And then we have Kozilek's Unsealing, which is also really good. This is such an amazing Kindred enchantment for Eldrazi. And the fact that it was printed in the uncommon slot is absolutely crazy. I remember when first seeing this card, I thought it was much stronger because of one specific line of text, but honestly, I still think it's a very push card for uncommon. Then we have Parallel Lives here and Path of Annihilation. So this is the powerhouse card in this deck, and even though it's just an uncommon, if you played MH3 Sealed and someone played Eldrazi Scion Spawn strategy, you'll know exactly why this card is so busted without me even, or if you've already read it. But it is that third paragraph here. If you go down and it says Eldrazi you control have add 1 mana of any color. So tap add 1 mana. So this is essentially going to turn all our Eldrazi Scions and Spawns into color fixers, and then you're going to be able to tap them and then sack them for a secondary colorless mana. So it just starts to get completely out of control when Path of Annihilation comes out. So huge enchantment to hit the board when it does. And this can essentially just completely, transform how strong the deck is when it comes out. Again, if you see this card in your opening hand and you have the mana and everything else looks good, try to keep it because it is just going to completely transform how you're able to cast and how you're able to progress through the match. All right, now I'll go over the land base. This will be pretty quick. We're right around like 20 minutes here. I was hoping to try and get this under 20, but it seems like we're going to hit like right around 25. Like I said, I do appreciate any feedback. If you guys think I can do something to speed up the videos or, not go over specific things for the decks, let me know. Or if you want me to go not cover certain topics and then cover more of like, say, gameplay or the type of hands you want to look for, let me know down below as well. So here we go. We have Ancient Tomb. So it's just a ramp there, Arid Mesa. And again, you can swap out a lot of this land base, and it's going to bring the cost down quite a bit. I even think you can, if you swap out all the fetches, you'll bring it down to maybe even sub 1,000. But swapping out the fetches is going to really hurt the color fixing of this deck. And I would say at a minimum, try to keep the fetches and run some basics. So we have Arid Mesa, Badlands, Battlefield Forge. Now, I have quite a few of the Painlands. The Painlands are super key to this deck because, once again, they essentially provide three of the needed colors we need to cast in this deck. And that being two certain colors, and then we have the colorless mana that it provides without the pinging of health. We have Bayou, Cave of Koilos, another Painland, our command tower there. Corrupted Crossroads. This is going to allow us to pay one life, add any one mana of any color. And again, this is going to impact our devoid spells. So a lot of the spells in this deck are devoid. Eldrazi Temple is essentially an ancient tomb for Eldrazi. We have Fountain Port. This is a great utility card coming out of Bloomburrow. We can use it to help us ramp if we can't quite get into certain ramp pieces that we need. So say we have nothing to do because we have pretty large CMC cards in our hand, but Fountain Port is down and we have the 4 mana. We'll just go ahead and create a treasure token. This also combos off with things like Parallel Lives, our Doubling Season, our Mondrak, etc. in the deck. So this can help quite a bit, and it can help accelerate us really fast if we have the right pieces out at the time. We have Gaia's Cradle. Again, this is another one I put in the cheaper version. You can just run a Growing Rites of Ithlamok. Not very hard, by the way, to trigger the Growing Rites of Ithlamok into the Gaia's Cradle version of it with this deck, because you're just going to be generating so many creatures, and the deck just on its own is very creature heavy. We have Horizon Progress. If you're not familiar with this card, pay 1 life, add 1 mana of any type that a land you control could produce. So if we have, say, like a dual land out, but we don't have, or we just have any land that produces a secondary color, and we need, say, like a red and a green, and we have like red colorless land and Horizon Progress, then we can go ahead and tap that land and then produce the green through the Horizon Progress, essentially turning it into a Mana Confluence or Brass, City of Brass there. We have some Triomes. Try to fetch these out as soon as possible. Drawing into a Triome is the worst thing ever. I always hate running them, but in a 5-color deck, you just have to run the Triomes. Worst case scenario, if you end up not needing the colors, then you can cycle it and hopefully not have to drop in a tapped land. Tap lands are the bane of my existence, but we have to run it in this deck. It's just not an option. So we're running it in Datha. We have another fetch land there, Marsh Flats, Misty for our fetch, another Triome here, Ragrin, our Scalding Tarn fetch, a Scrubland, Secluded Courtyard. So we'll obviously always choose Eldrazi when this comes in. This was a really good choice for a reprint in Foundations. Really happy to see that. It got rotated out of Standard. Great to see this back into Standard. We have Shifting Woodland. This is kind of optional. I threw it in here more as like a playtest thing after MH3 came out. You can use it to delirium any of the Titans which are in the graveyard that didn't cause an auto shuffle. Otherwise, this could probably be a cut, and you could maybe put in something else. Not absolutely necessary to be running this card. Shivan Reef, Painland there for us. Spawning Bed, really, really good colorless land for this deck. If needed, we can go ahead and sack it, especially if we have some of those doubling effects onto the board to essentially allow us to ramp into the next turn. I would do it at obviously the opponent's end step. Just go ahead, tap for 6, sack, create, say, 6 Eldrazi Scions, and then we have 6 additional mana, or I guess you would say netting an additional 5 for the following turn. We have Taiga, Talongate's Madara. So this allows us to either protect our creatures if need be. Otherwise, it'll just run in as a colorless land, and then we can also filter land if we need to through it. We have 3 Tree City, which is kind of a form of a cradle here in this deck. And because we are running a Kindred strategy, it does work in this deck as well. This land is, if you haven't played with it yet, it has to be in a strategy where you are generating a lot of a specific creature, because it can end up just falling flat on its face if you haven't used it yet, if you don't have enough creatures out. Essentially, you would need a minimum of at least 4 creatures for this thing to start netting anything above what a standard land would net. So, Tome of the Spirit Dragon. I mentioned that we don't really have much life gain in this deck, and this is going to be our life gain. And there's going to be a couple ways we can fetch this, either being the vampiric or the demonic. Or we have an Urza's Cave in this deck, and that's going to allow us to fetch the Tomb of the Spirit Dragon. And if we have enough Eldrazi out, this thing is going to keep us alive for as long as we need, because it's going to gain us 1 life for each colorless creature we control. And if we have enough Scions or Spawns out, we're going to be gaining 6, 7, 8, 9 life per turn and be able to close it out if we're just taking too much combat damage. We have an Urborg. I don't run Yavimaya, honestly. You probably swap out the Shifting Woodlands for a Yavimaya, and that might be a better choice. Personally, I think it is the better choice, but like I said, I kind of want to experiment with the Shifting Woodland. Let me know what you guys think below. There's our Urza's Cave. This is going to fetch us any land we need. So it doesn't have to be that Tomb of the Spirit Dragon, but very, very good card to run. Urza's Saga, Verdant Catacomb, another Tri-land there with Xander's Lounge. And then we have Yavimaya Coast for a Pain land, and we're going to end it on a Zagoth Triome with a Zayatora's Proving Ground. So quite a few of the Triomes there. Let me see if I can find real quick this card that I wanted to show you all that I think should be added. So there it is, actually. So Banner of Kinship is the one card I think if you guys are building this deck, maybe pick it up, or if you just hit it in your opening of Foundation or your pre-release, throw it in. But as this artifact enters, choose a creature type. The artifact, this artifact enters with a Fellowship counter on it for each creature you control of the chosen type. So as you can see, very, very strong, essentially Creator Foot. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each Fellowship counter on this artifact. Absolutely busted card. I definitely want to experiment with it in this deck. Let me know what you guys think I should cut out. Like I said, I'm over 1 card right now. I realized as I entered this deck into Moxfield, I've been cheating this whole time. But I need to cut 2 cards. So let me know what you guys think I should cut. Let me know what you thought of the deck build. And just the review altogether. If you guys liked it, if you didn't like it, I always appreciate the criticism or the comments down below. Do check us out on Whatnot. We have a $15 credit down below. I stream there usually 2 to 3 times a week. We've already done our 3 times for this week, but we'll be going live again on probably Thursday here. So I'll catch you all then. But yeah, if you liked the video, comment, like, subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.